All right, good morning, everyone. Wave meteorologist Brian Good. Let's see, it is about 56 after 9 o'clock here on this Tuesday. Once again, a very active setup and a lot to cover. So the alerts are now going out to all of our devices and social pages. So it's going to take a bit to get all that out. So I'll kind of stop for just a second to allow everyone to have a chance to jump in, so I'm not repeating myself so many times with this setup. But a lot to cover, though, because this is really the same exact atmosphere that just isn't changing. We do not have any cold fronts that are coming through here to clear the air out. So you're dealing with the same atmosphere that just keeps sloshing around, basically. At times it gets stormy, it heats back up. You get another round of storms, it heats back up, another round of storms. And that is the back and forth that we're talking about until we get a cold front or some type of change to move in the area. Even a high pressure to the west of us would be nice. If it scooted over a little more, it would help us out. So it's the idea that not a whole lot is going to change on the overall setup. It's the reason why we're dealing with a daily chance of showers and thunderstorms. And this is day and night, as you guys are fully aware. And at times they can pack quite a punch with damaging winds, heavy rain and flooding. And there's other times where it's quiet and all you have to worry about is really going to be the heat, which is something you need to monitor as well, because it is a fairly hot setup as well with high humidity. So I see everyone's comments flying in. Hello to Michelle. Brandon, I hope you're doing well. Can we not this week? Brandon, I understand. Can we just not this week? I agree. I don't think anyone's in the mood for severe weather, but this week, yeah, kind of over it now. All right. Maybe in April, we kind of expect it in May, something like that. But you get into the summer months here, we're trying to enjoy quiet periods, right? Hello, Angela. Hope you're doing well. Hello to Sean and Tracy as well. Brad, yeah, it was loud last night. And for some, it will be loud again tonight. I do not see this being a one side of the viewing area to the other type of setup tonight. So some of you will get some sleep without worrying about strong storms. But I do think you'll have some to worry about at times. Hello, Tracy, or is it Tracy? No, Tanya. I'm sorry, Tanya, over in LaGrange, Kentucky. Hope all is well in LaGrange. All right, so let me explain how we're going to get through this. Hello, Myron. Sorry, how are you? I haven't seen Myron in like 20 years. All right, so let's get into where we're going to be in the short term, and then I'll kind of explain as we go along here. As I always try to do, I try to do this in as much of a chronological order as I possibly can to get to the 10-day at the very end. We'll start with a live view outside. And yes, you're seeing the alert day tag on there. I can tell you right now that tonight is likely going to be an alert day. I just haven't finished up the time frames on it yet. Still working on that. But an alert day is likely for tonight. So, and we may have more alert days in the future. So I think we're kind of getting used to that. Okay, so right now it is this is the after the rain, after the storm type of setup. So we're having a chance to kind of catch our breath here for a while. You see some green on the radar. Ignore that. It is not rain in Corden. That's just clutter from the radar beam itself. We do have a partly to mostly sunny sky now developing in the area. But let me take you on a broader scope because there's a couple of things to point out. First off, you see the showers and storms lining up to our north and west. This is last night's activity, by the way. It moved to the east. More on that in a second. Smaller complex of thunderstorms into Illinois. However, the environment they're running into is a post-thunderstorm environment that we have that was not experienced that far west last night. So that activity will likely diminish before it has a chance to really cause us any problems. But I do think it will still be an issue for what will happen for later on for tonight. So more on that in a second. And you see more storms into Iowa. By the way, I can tell my signal is kind of locking up here. So if my words are not matching my emotions and I may be freezing at times, I apologize. I'm just teasing. I apologize if I do freeze up at times there. It's just the system's kind of overloaded here today. So just kind of bear with me. A lot of severe weather across the country. Okay. But if I freeze up completely and you don't understand what I'm saying, just make sure to shout out in the chat because it's about maybe 5 seconds or so delay. And I want to make sure I don't mess you guys up. Okay, so we got the lining up of the storms to the west. But here's the issue. We've got this strong high pressure that's in the central part of the country. This is a very typical summer setup, by the way, where you got your big high located into the plains. and you got a strong clockwise wind flow, what we call the ring of fire, that is moving around it. And that just keeps taking energy that's eventually picking up some moisture as it travels across the northern plains into the Midwest. And those thunderstorms develop and they take the path of the wind flow of the high. That is very easy to deal with when it comes to MCSs, the complexes of storms we're talking about that roll on through. That part is easiest of probably most severe weather type of setups is the ring of fire, because we know that when you're in the zone and not in the zone, and we know the path they will likely take. What matters, though, is the environment each time a spoke or a little ripple in that flow goes around the loop, if you will. Every time it goes around, if the environment is not conducive for it to be a thunderstorm setup, as it arrives, it'll be just a little ripple, maybe some showers, maybe some clouds, and that's it. But if that ripple is arriving in your community and you're hot, all right, you've heated up, you've got a lot of humidity, you're primed, you're ready to go, well, then that little ripple is going to take advantage of that, and you end up with a big complex of thunderstorms and severe weather starts to happen. So not all of them become awake, if you will, and become a problem. But we can at least see them lined up all the way back into Rapid City. So what we're trying to do now is figure out which one of those will move into an environment that is ripe for severe weather. Some, even in the case tonight, some will be, some will not be. So that's what we're trying to adjust and try to give you the best window we possibly can on the severe side when we think there will be a window when one of those spokes, when it moves by, will cause us problems. All right. So once we get that nailed down, and I should be able to within the hour, have that ready for you guys. And you should see that reflected on the Wave Weather app too, as soon as it gets taken care of. So give us a moment to hash out some of the morning data today, but we'll have it out there. But this is the setup that's still at play. And also in the core of the heat, right under that dome of high pressure, that is where you've got a lot of heat and humidity just built up. It's stagnant. You don't have the ability to get any one of those spokes to move through for showers and storms. So you folks in Kansas City and to Arkansas, they're like, oh, we would love to have something come through. We don't want the severe weather, but we'd love to get some rain and clouds and cool us down, because they're just nothing but hot. And the air is just not prime, because high pressure, the way it's stacked up, you get hotter in many cases as you go up instead of colder. And therefore, you can even develop cumulus clouds in that setup. So it becomes just a very much a heat dome, if you will. But we're on the edge. And being on the edge is not where you want to be on a heat dome, because that is basically lining up where we've had our severe threats for the past few days. And until that changes, until the high moves in some direction, or we get a cold front that will drop down and push the high down to the south and take over, or the third option, and it's fair to say this time of year, would be a tropical system that would sneak in. Unfortunately, though, based on where the high is placed, it wouldn't hit us. It would have no choice but to go around Texas and into Mexico, basically. So the high is not in a good spot for us to even get that idea. But you can get some relief from tropical systems. But in this setup where it's placed, you actually would not. All right. So is everyone clear on why this is happening? Type 2 if you're good. Type 2 if you're good on why we're in this setup and why it is a timing issue, and why we keep adjusting the forecast on the severity and timing. I want to make sure you guys understand the why. And we don't have time to do this on TV, obviously. We can't anyway right now because the Olympics are on. But you guys on the blog, I appreciate y'all being here, because you all have an opportunity for us to be able to try to go a little further than a TV weathercast and explain the why, because I think it's important for you guys to know why. I'm not trying to turn you all into meteorologists, right? Unless you want to be. But I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to help give you guys some extra ammo to use when you're checking the Wave Weather app, so you have an idea of what to look for as well. Because that part I do think is important to know, especially when we be out and about. All right, so the storms last night. Here are the damage reports. We've had several trees down as they moved on by. They did have a nice little kick to them right when they got into the metro, producing the warnings. I'm sure you guys didn't get much sleep. I don't think you certainly know whether person did in town, because we was just constant alerts and warnings and weather radios going off. But even those of you that have your weather radio plugged in probably just were like, seriously, it's going off again. So yeah, it was kind of a wild night, right? But nothing significant on the damage here. It was just your typical trees that get knocked down. These downburst winds, they have a kick to them. No tornado damage here. We only had one storm that was rotating that became close to producing a tornado, and that was back into Perry County, Indiana, but that it did not materialize. It lost its circulation and therefore became just a typical thunderstorm. That's the only one that came close. Cincinnati, different story. They obviously had some issues yesterday with the limited radar data that we're trying to work with, but still went the couple storms that really were rotating in Cincinnati, especially around Westchester. But when they got to the eastern side, you get to that area just south of Mason, Ohio, and near Kings Island, that's when you ran into more damage reports and possibly tornado damage. But that's up to their office to figure out if they're going to survey or not and determine if severe weather will happen. Rainfall, that was a good soaking rain. I only picked up, though, about 0.4 of an inch at my house. I missed out on some of the heavier amounts, but some of you did pick up where you see that yellow over 2 inches. So once again, we just, in phases, we're almost locking in the idea we're going to be able to avoid a drought, right? When we keep getting these complexes rolling on through, as long as we keep giving the rain in the right spots that hits the areas that need it and not spots that don't need it, and we end up with flooding issues over and over. So far, it looks like we're trying to spread it out enough to where I think that is helpful. Okay, so let's go through where we're going to go today on the severe risk. All right, this is the most recent one. It'll be updated again about 12:30, but it's roughly Louisville and south and west is where we have the severe risk today, slight risk, and then it drops off a little more to the north. Breaking it down a bit more, tornado potential is there. Just like we saw yesterday, you can get very weak tornadoes that can form, but a tornado is a tornado, so you got to still pay attention to it. And I'll explain why that has been drawn into our area in a second. We get into the damage and wind potential. It's up there. Now notice in the top left side where it says the wave storm tracking team, you see the hatched area. That is actually where the enhanced risk begins. There is an enhanced risk that's out into the Midwest, not here. But that's where that begins, is for the straight line winds for the MCS that'll dive out of Illinois and Iowa later on. And your hail potential, it's there. And I think this is only for the storms early on that we'll see for this evening. If there's anything that can form, that's when your hail potential will show up. Otherwise, the atmosphere is so heavily saturated, you don't tend to get a lot of large hail in this kind of a setup. You got to have dry pockets to allow for hail. Large hail, especially to form, and we are missing some of that in this type of setup. So that's the reason why it's not a huge threat. Okay, and here's your wind shear. I took this from the Storm Prediction Center site to give you an idea of why it's angled the way it is. Again, we're on the edge of the high, the ring of fire, but you see your wind shear roughly about 35, 40 knots. It extends. I put a circle there for Louisville, but you can see that it extends right into West Kentucky and all the way back into Iowa. Certainly higher values up here into the Midwest where the enhanced risk is located. But that's why the slight is drawn all the way into Kentucky, is because we have the wind shear available to allow for severe weather to develop. We got the humidity, got the wind. Everything's pretty much lining up for what could be an active setup, especially for areas just west of Louisville. So last night it was north, really. They got the worst of it. I think this evening you're going to hear a lot about Illinois. You're going to hear a lot about Southwest Indiana, Evansville, Paducah, Owensboro, Muhlenberg County, St. Louis. You're going to hear more about those areas getting impacted by severe weather this evening than what we had, say, Cincinnati last night. So a bit of a shift, a slight one, but nothing too dramatic there. All right, let's walk you through this with Futurecast. Now, here we go. Let me actually back this up for a second. Right here. This afternoon, for the next few hours, by the way, we're fine. You got a doctor's appointment today. Errands you need to run through lunch, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. You're good. I don't see any problems. We have enough heating going on aloft, especially to kind of keep things a bit of a lid on the atmosphere. But we get into the afternoon, one or two of these storms are going to try to bust the cap, we call that, across central areas of Kentucky. This particular run of the HERT model especially likes Bardstown, but it may not be Bardstown. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of them. It's only going to be a few. But anything that forms late this afternoon, this is where you're going to get your hail potential that will come into play. These are heat buster type of supercells too that can form. So we need to watch those. But those are the first cells. These will be separate from what will be happening later on tonight. But at least want to mention that there could be one or two that could form. All right, now we get into 10 o'clock tonight. And this is a snapshot of what it will look like. Now, it looks a little weird here because you see this line that is extending out from the MCS. Okay, a couple things with that. With a line like that, you're going to get multiple issues. One, you're going to get a training effect for flash flooding. So I am concerned where this boundary here extends out. You have to look at this almost like a mini warm front. The boundary is actually there now. What is happening is the MCS, when it moves out of Illinois, it connects to it. And this is where they shake hands, is right over near Louisville, Paoli, down into near Bardstown, somewhere in that area. There is a boundary. I can't see it very well right now on the visible satellite, but it is left over from the storms this morning, and it's sitting there taking a nap. It will awaken, though, when the storms tonight roll in out of Illinois and there's a handshake and they combine. When you get that effect, though, of a boundary like that, and it may be a little more west than what is listed here, it could be a little more over Louisville, too. That part not locked in yet because, again, we can't really see the boundary just yet, but we know it is there. But as it connects, that's where we're going to run into a training effect, and that's where we could get some very high rainfall totals. That's issue number one we need to watch. Issue number two, where there's a handshake, that's where we're going to get an isolated tornado threat that will develop. That's why the tornado threat has been drawn into our area, is we will have the chance for at least some cells to rotate along this boundary that can produce a brief tornado. You will have that too along the main line itself, but it'll be along that handshake area as well. Notice there's not much happening north and east of there. So there are some of you that are watching right now that this will all miss you. This will be too far to your south and west, and you'll be able to enjoy some quiet time for at least most of the night. Meanwhile, the rest of us are kind of going through fireworks, right? Everything going off like crazy. So Louisville's right on the edge of this whole thing, but just be weather aware. The timing on this, near sunset, it should be diving down. There are some models that try to split up the intensity of this MCS because of this boundary. This boundary wants to shake it up a bit. I don't know yet if that is going to be enough of a weakening or a breaking up of it to allow for some of you, like in Hardinsburg and Grayson County, E-Town, Munfordville, and Hart County, if there is a bit of a shakeup in the main line because of what is happening all around it, there is a chance some part of this may weaken. So we may not have a solid line here of severe weather as it rolls out of Illinois. It may be more in pockets, and therefore I'm hoping that some of you may slide in to where you just get a wall of heavy rain and you can skip the severe weather. I'm not ruling that out. We just don't know yet where that zone will be, but it is showing up. It is showing up on several models, not just one, several, that there is a weakening in that complex somewhere on the eastern side or near the middle that happens. So that's why we're still evaluating on timing and also impacts to see how that evolves. Okay, that moves on through. We get to the midnight hour. It's mainly just rain, but we're not done. Remember, there are other ripples that keep going on the Ring of Fire, right? So there's another ripple that will begin to move in. This time around, it'll be near sunrise in the morning. It doesn't appear to be too active because it's so active in the evening. I think it'll be just a blob of rain that'll move on by. So I don't see any severe weather with that one right now for the overnight, early morning hours of Wednesday. In fact, we may get lucky, and if we can stay cloudy enough tomorrow morning, we may be able to avoid a severe threat tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be tough because there is a ripple right there. You saw it dive in. There is another ripple tomorrow afternoon that moves by that could produce severe weather. The difference in tomorrow from today is we're going to be a lot cloudier this time tomorrow than what we are now. So therefore, it may help us out and trying to tame it down somewhat. We'll see. But it doesn't stop. There's more ripples to be had as we head into Thursday. So your severe risk right now for tomorrow is on the marginal side because we don't know yet if we're going to be able to break out the clouds in enough time to allow for another round of severe weather in the afternoon. If we end up breaking out in sunshine about this time tomorrow or midday tomorrow and we heat things up, there's going to be a slight risk painted back on the area again. All right. And it would likely be Indiana through Louisville, Lexington. It would be on the northern section. It will get drawn up again. So don't get too used to this being a marginal risk. It will likely change, but it's conditional. That's why we're not doing alert days any longer in advance of the current scenario at play this week. That's how we're approaching it because it's too complex. You can't throw out a constant alert days. If I was just going by the atmosphere and the Ring of Fire alone, we're going to have alert day out through Saturday. But we don't want to do that to you guys, and we don't want to do that to ourselves. So it's easier to handle them case by case and get time frames attached to each alert day so that you know when to pay extra attention. So that's how we're approaching it this week. So it's a little different. We usually try to get alert days out well in advance, but I think it would be more of a disservice to you guys if we put too many out in advance with broad time frames. I think it's easier on you all, and let me know if you agree or disagree, but I think you guys would understand it more if we approach them by time frame on the day of. That way you know what you need to monitor and look out for. All right, Thursday, because we don't know how Wednesday will play out, we have to go by what's on paper, and on paper it shows that we will have another day of heating. Now the high does move slightly on Thursday, slightly. You notice the ring of fire is a little different shape to it. It's not as straight up and down on the diving of these thunderstorms. It's a little more east-west. So the high does have a slight shift or nudge to it on Thursday. Still could get some intense thunderstorms that roll through our counties, but some of you may get saved and be a little more into the heat dome, and we may end up with heat advisories because of that may move into our southern counties. We may get heat advisories in this area as a result, but we'll worry about Thursday when we get to Thursday. Okay, real quick on the long term, I'm going to be very generic on this. I mentioned the ring of fire, but eventually we do have a low that will try to settle into the Ohio Valley that may give us just some general showers, but I'm hoping will help and push in the high more to the west. At the same time, we're watching what could be Debbie or not. We don't know yet on the tropics, but it's trying to form something, right, as it moves in. The problem is after our low moves by, as you're about to see, there is a cold front that settles in behind this. Will this cold front get locked in into the I-65 or I-64, I-70 corridor? And here it is next Wednesday. If that front does dive into the area, I do think we'll get some thunderstorms along it. But what it's doing is it's telling this tropical wave, we don't know, again, if it's going to be Debbie or not, you can't go up the coast. It's blocking it, saying, nope, you're stuck. Boy, that would be a mess for the Bahamas. You're getting a tropical cyclone of some sort, whether it's a depression or a storm, and it just sits there. It doesn't have anywhere to go. Really can't go inland, to be honest. You expect it to give more rain into the southeast part of the country, but because of the front and its sense in the front, it's going to wait. It's going to linger until it has an idea if the front will make it all the way down into the lower latitudes. If it does, it will likely get absorbed into the front and get out to sea. If the front is slower than expected, it does then have a chance to move a little more inland. That is possible. So there's a lot of ifs on next week. My drawing's kind of sum up. I'm going to just keep drawing. There you go. That's how next week looks. So, yeah, we'll worry about it another time. All right, let me get right into the 10-day and get some of your questions. I feel like I've rambled so much today, but yesterday I was not feeling great yesterday, and I think you guys could tell that, so I apologize. But today I'm better to where hopefully I'm able to explain things a little easier for you all. All right, so there's the 10-day. I get hot days when it's not storming, but storm threats will be there. Don't get too caught up on the rain chances entirely, because some of this is reflecting a daytime chance. Some of this will be a nighttime chance, and that could be two different numbers. We will try to get some drier air in here at some point over the weekend. I think it's going to be the latter half of the weekend. It stays hot, and then there's the front next Wednesday that drops in, and we'll just see whether or not that will push all the way through or not. So there you go. That is the entire scenario for the next 10 days. Let's see. Thanks, Twana. Twana's watching my scribbles. Let's see. There's a lot of you in here, so got to bear with me in some of these questions because you're flying by, and I'm locking up already. Grass can be so tall. Yeah, that's the thing too. I mean, we're not going to have a chance to really mow, right? Because you want to get out there and mow after a rainy event, but the yard's either too wet or it's way too hot to be out dealing with it. So, just let it grow. Just let it become a jungle. That's fine. You'll be all right. Okay, everyone looks good. I know everyone's saying there's storm anxiety. I get it. Storm anxiety is high, and it's kind of a setup. Brandon, just spin ups like yesterday. Yeah. This is not a. We do have decent wind not for severe weather, but as far as getting anything big time on tornadoes, this is not the environment for that. But EF0 and EF1s cause damage, so you still got to pay attention to that. I don't care if they're briefly on the ground or not. They can cause problems, and they obviously, the way it's looking, it may have done that in Cincinnati last night. So it can still happen. So please be careful. All right, I'm going to end it there for now. We, again, will have our streaming just like you're watching right now, except on Facebook. But we will be streaming our newscast 3, 4, and 5 o'clock this afternoon. So we'll have updates on what's going on this afternoon. You can tune in for that. And obviously, our 6 o'clock show and 7 o'clock show will be on tonight. And if there's a need to be on this evening, which may be required like last night, we'll have updates when we're able to do so during the Olympics. Otherwise, most of our severe weather coverage will be on the streaming site. So keep the Wave Weather app close by. Remember, we have that 24-hour streaming weather channel. Keep that on. As soon as we do an interruption there, it'll automatically kick in. All right, stay safe, everyone. Let's hope that we end up with a tamer version of everything I just said, but that chance is there. So we need to be ready just in case. All right, take care. Stay safe and try to stay cool. It's going to be hot for the next several hours with a quiet radar again until about, say, 5 o'clock or so this afternoon. And the first pop-ups should begin to develop. Take care, guys.